A little over a year later, people are still paying Trump's sycophanting inbreds to hunt for non-existent voter fraud. At a wedding hall in a rural northwest Wisconsin area, an evangelist hollered a question to an eager. Um, an evangelist had hollered a question to an eager crowd of conference goers who thinks Wisconsin can be saved. Hay was answered with enthusiastic whistles and cheers. The truth, he said, would be revealed, and that basically he claims they need transparency. The subject, though, of this is the nation's election systems. The preacher was among a group of conservative inbreds, and that included politicians, data gurus, and former military officers who have theorized on the mechanics of voter fraud in general, and specifically distrusted the voter rolls, the official list of eligible voters. The voter rolls are very, very important to the process. Florida software and database engineer Jeff O'Donnell told the gathering of people that there was only like 300 there in late January in Chippewa Falls, deeming the rolls the ground zero of what he called Democratic plots to steal elections, which is kind of funny because the Democrats weren't the one that stole the election. The only way that former squatter Donald Trump could have lost his election campaign in 2020, O'Donnell said in an interview, was that voter rolls had been inflated with people who shouldn't have been able to cast ballots, and that's not exactly the case. Nobody wanted Trump. That's why he lost. Trump has since 2020, Trump has failed to convince the world that he lost the 2020 election because of fraud, and the like-minded people across the country have been taking up the same Klan rallying cry, revisiting that vote with an eye toward what will happen in 2022. Now, a new group is stepping into a more conspicuous role in that role by providing easily accessible tools for people in Wisconsin. Now, other Midwest battleground states and eventually the entire country to forge ahead with the quest to prove election irregularities. Now calling its work unprecedented, the Voter Reference Foundation is analyzing state voter rolls in search of discrepancies between the number of ballots cast and the number of voters credited by the rolls as having participated in the November 3rd, 2020 election. Now, the foundation that was led by a former Trump campaign official and founded less than a year ago has dismissed objections from election officials that its methodology is flawed and that its actions are illegal. ProPublica had found out, but with its inquiries and insinuations, VoteRef, as it is known as, has added to the volume in the echo chamber. Its instrument is the voter rolls, released line by line for everyone to see. In early August, the foundation published on its website the names, birth dates, and addresses and voting histories for 2 million Nevada voters, information that is normally public but only available on request for a small fee. It claimed to have found a significant discrepancy between the number of voters and the number of ballots cast, despite being warned by state election officials that its findings were fundamentally incorrect. In the months since, VoteRef has reported similar discrepancies in rolls posted in 17 other states, including the 2020 election battlegrounds of Michigan, Georgia, Ohio, and Wisconsin. It intends to post the rolls of all 50 states by the year's end. The voter file transparency site adds Michigan, large discrepancy found. This is what a headline read on December 6th of last year, or like probably in 2020 anyway. The press release, but it was put out by the organization, which is led by Gina Swoboa, a high-ranking officer in the Republican Party of Arizona. The project is still in its early stages, and the people at the Chippewa Falls conference did not mention VoteRef specifically. Still, the VoteRef initiative is an important indication of how some influential and well-funded Republicans across the country plan to encourage crowdsourcing of voter rolls to find what they consider to be errors um, and anomalies. So then they dispute the voter registrations of specific individuals. Now, visitors to the VoteRef site are able to scroll through data on more than 85 million people in a free, easy-to-use format. Now, the VoteRef data includes personal identifying information of every voter and all the years that they voted in, but not how they voted. So you can't tell whether they voted Democrat or Republican, but you can tell the years that they voted. The vote refs methods have already led to a pushback from state officials. The New Mexico Secretary of State believes that posting data about individual voters online is not a permissible use under any state law, and it has referred the matter to the state attorney general for criminal investigation. Now, an attorney for the Pennsylvania Department of State notified VoteRef in January that the state law prohibits publishing the voter rolls on the internet and asked that the data be removed. ProPublica had contacted election officials in a dozen of other states where VoteRep has examined voter rolls, and in every case, the officials said that the methodology that's used to identify these discrepancies has been flawed. The data was either incomplete or it was wrong. The officials, a mix of Democrats and Republicans, were in Colorado, Connecticut, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Wisconsin. Now, the accuracy and integrity of Michigan's election has been confirmed by hundreds of audits, numerous courts, and a GOP-led oversight committee analysis, basically. This is what Tracy Whitmer, Tracy Wimmer, Director of Media Relations for Michigan Secretary of State. Now, this is simply another meritless example of election misinformation that's being disseminated to undermine well-funded faith in Michigan's election system, and from an organization that was led by at least one former member of the Trump campaign. This is what Wimmer had said. The VoteRef record show is an initiative of the conservative nonprofit group Restoration Action and its related political action committee, both led by Doug Truax, an Illinois insurance broker and a podcaster who ran unsuccessfully in the state's GOP primary for the U.S. Senate back in 2014. A ProPublica review found that VoteRef's origins and founders are closely linked to a super PAC, predominantly that's funded by billionaire Richard Uihlein, who's a founder of the Mammoth, Wisconsin-based packaging supply company Uihlein. He's a descendant of one of the founders of the Joseph Schlitz Brewing Company. Uihlein is a major Trump sycophant and a key player in Wisconsin and Illinois politics. Among his political donations, he donated $800,000 in September of 2020 to the Tea Party Traders Political Action Committee, a group that helped organize the January 6th Klan rally that led to the Capitol Klan insurrection. Uihlein and his wife Elizabeth Uihlein have contributed in excess of $30 million combined over 2 decades, mainly to Republican candidates on the state and local level, particularly in Illinois and Wisconsin, according to Open Secrets, which is a nonpartisan organization that tracks campaign donor information. This total includes money given to groups that advocate on behalf of candidates as well as direct contributions. Now, voter rolls are public information. They're typically used by campaigns to identify potential sycophants or supporters, target messages, or persuade people to go to the polls. Now, the journalists and some businesses also at times use their rolls for news gatherings or commercial purposes. Now, VoteRep has said that its aim is to increase transparency in the elections process, echoing the language used to justify door-to-door address checks, painstaking ballot audits, and other efforts that Trump sycophants are continuing to employ to parse the 2020 election, and to publicize the results of its analysis of ballot inconsistencies. It crafted press releases that then were parroted on sites that purport to be legitimate news outlets and were connected to a media network that received large sums of money from VoteRep. VoteRep is the beginning of a new era of American election transparency, Swoboda, VoteRep's executive director, said in its Nevada press release. We have an absolute right to see everything behind the curtain. No, you don't. Until a few months before the 2020 election, Swoboda, who was a resident of a Scottsdale, a Phoenix suburb, was a professional in Arizona's election system, working as the campaign finance and lobbying supervisor in the Arizona Secretary of State's office. Swoboda then served as an election day operations director for the Trump campaign in Arizona, according to a sworn court affidavit she gave in Arizona in November 2020, as part of Trump's legal challenge to election results here. She described how she took complaints from people who thought poll workers allowed defective ballots to be submitted, which is not the case, and what later became known as Sharpiegate, and votes made with the Sharpie do count, she said. She and others that are associated with the VoteRep declined to be interviewed for the story, but Swoboda did respond with an email. In each of these states, we've researched up to date. The election data math simply doesn't add up, she wrote. That requires reform. Of course, she's a Trump sycophant, so basically, she doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. But we seek to spur this reform through the sustained spotlighting of inaccuracies or wrongdoing. As of late February, VoteRep showed that 431,173 more ballots cast overall, that were cast overwhelmed than people credited by voter rolls with having participated in the 2020 election. I don't know where the hell they're getting these numbers, but I can tell you that this fucking bitch is inaccurate. And to those unschooled in the mechanics of election, vote reps' approach could seem reasonable, which it's really not. But compare the total number of ballots cast in the November 3rd, 2020 election with the number of current voters on the rolls who have recorded histories of having participated in the vote. Now, for example, the vote rep table for Nevada shows 8,952 more ballots cast in individuals credited with voting based on histories obtained in February of 2021. Now, theoretically, these numbers should match what Rep claimed in an August press release, but there are valid reasons that the numbers do not. Now, Nevada election officials explained in this way in a press release that if John Doe votes and has his ballot counted in the Lander County, and then he moves to Mineral County. Once he is registered in Mineral County, he will show no vote history because he has no vote history in Mineral County. The farther away from the election the data is acquired, the more it will have changed. Now, in Connecticut, there is 1,839,714 people that are registered to vote, and that's how many ballots were cast in 2020. According to VoteRep, the group's examination of voter histories in October of 2021 showed that there was only 1,802,458 people that voted. Now, VoteRep's conclusion is that there was a discrepancy of 37,000 votes. But state election officials said that the registration database is live, and voting histories of those who moved out of state or died in the months after the election would have been removed from the rolls, accounting for the discrepancy. Now, the list is not a static list, said Connecticut Secretary of State Denise Merrill. It changes all the time. Now, in Michigan, where VoteRep found a difference of more than 74,000 votes, an election official said that the state's qualified voter file also constantly changes as it's updated, making the data the foundation relied on in late May of 2021, and more than 6 months after the election, is out of date. Now, in a recent email to ProPublica, Swaboa conceded this much: It's up to the election officials who run election offices to reconcile their data, and not the Voter Reference Foundation, which merely publishes their information in a consumer-friendly format, she said. But of course, our election experts are well aware of the time lag between the certification and data polls. They posted the documents online for all to see. Now, federal law requires that election supervisors make reasonable efforts to update their voter list, but it provides leeway in how states carry out that task. The law prohibits administrators from removing people for simply not voting in repeated elections unless notices go unanswered, and officials wait for the 2 federal election cycles before putting the voters on an inactive list. Now, counties haven't always done a good job in this, but however, in maintaining the voter rolls, leading some people to distrust the system, one of the vote reps' key aims is to task ordinary people with the chore of finding anomalies. Now, But in announcing the launch of its website, the Voter Reference Foundation touted it as a first-of-its-kind searchable tool for all 50 states that will finally give American citizens a way to examine crucial voting records. Now, citizens will be able to check their voting status, vote history, and those of their neighbors, friends, and others, and they will be able to crowdsource any errors. The group's backers have encouraged scrutiny outside of one's own household. Now, with VoteRef.com, you can find out who voted and who didn't. Did your aunt who died 10 years ago vote after she died? Did your neighbor who moved to another state vote? Did 55 votes emerge from a 5-unit apartment complex? Jeffrey Partner, who might be a partner in a venture capital group who earlier had appeared on Truex's podcast, this is what he had wrote on the newsletter site Substack in December. Matt Batzel, whose organization American Majority recently highlighted VoteRef's efforts in Wisconsin, said in an interview with ProPublica that VoteRef's vision is for citizens to detect and then report potential problems with the voter rolls, such as people who are registered to vote and vacant lots of unusually high numbers of votes coming from nursing homes. Election experts say the type of work being done by the VoteRef risks leading to further misinformation or being weaponized by people trying to undermine the legitimacy of the past election or give the sense that voter fraud is a more encompassing problem than it's proven to be, or can be used to harass or intimidate valid voters under the guise of challenging the legitimacy Even without any clear evidence of fraud during the 2020 election, the vast decentralized election system is still has drawn scrutiny from those who believe that the system can easily be manipulated. At the day long voter integrity conference in Chippewa Falls, speakers had invoked war imagery, spoke of multiple cover-ups, and urged people to expose the tactics of the Democratic left because they think that the Democrats stole the election, which they didn't. The group saluted via video by Trump acolyte and the My Pillow crackhead Mike Lindell is seeking to put like-minded individuals and the vote certifying Secretary of State officials nationwide. The voter rolls have been targeted too by others in Wisconsin, including Special Counsel Michael Gableman, who's a former state Supreme Court justice and Trump sycophant, who the state's Republican Assembly Speaker appointed in June to conduct a review of Wisconsin's administration of the 2020 election. Now, on March 1st, Gableman released a report blasting what he called opaque, confusing, and often botched election processes. Gableman urged the legislation to consider legal methods to enable citizens or civil rights groups to help maintain election databases. Now, as it currently stands, there is no clear method for individuals with facial evidence of inaccurate voter rolls to enter the state court and seek to fix that problem. He envisioned a system that could even provide nominal rewards for successful voter roll challenges. Now, while the information about voters is available in most states, it comes at a cost and with limits on how it can be distributed to avoid having some private information be easily accessible. Now, in January, an official with the Pennsylvania Department of State wrote to Truax warning that it appeared that the Voter Reference Foundation had unlawfully posted the Pennsylvania voter information on its website and demanding that the organization take immediate action to remove that information. Soon, Pennsylvania data disappeared from the website, so ABOA declined to answer questions about the matter, and attempts to reach Truax were unsuccessful. Now, in New Mexico, Secretary of State Maggie Toulouse Oliver had also said that the undertaking is not an allowable use of voter data. By state law, she said the rules can only be used for the governmental or campaign purposes. Having voter registration data blasted out across the internet violates state law, limiting the use of the voter rolls solely for campaign or government activities. She said in December, Toulouse Oliver's office referred the matter to the state attorney general for investigation and possible prosecution. Now, associates of the Voter Reference Foundation dismissed these privacy concerns. Basically, you're fucking joking. Basically, Bill Wilson, who's chairman of the conservative-leaning Market Research Foundation of Fairfax, Virginia, had paid more than $11,000 to the state of Virginia in March of 2021 for the voter roll data, and he shared it with the Voter Reference Foundation. Big tech, both political parties and big media have no interest or concern for privacy, and they have mountains of data on individuals that are shared and sold on an hourly basis. Restoration Action PAC describes itself on its website as the effective dynamo against those trying to destroy our country. It produces ads on behalf of state and national candidates, and it castigates Planned Parenthood, biased Democratic media, and big tech and advocates for fair elections. Now, Truax, the group's head, frequently assumes the role of news anchor to host the first Republican video podcast interviewing two far-gone conservatives. In early June last year, he introduced his audience to VoteRep, telling them that they helped create the organization, and they'll have much more to say about it in the coming weeks. Richard Uline's quiet role was essential. He had been the primary funder of the Restoration PAC since its inception in 2015. He has contributed at least $44 million, according to the data from Open Secrets. In May of 2021, Federal Election Commission records show that Uline donated $1.5 million to the Restoration PAC, and that same month the Voter Reference Foundation was incorporated in Ohio. 2 weeks later, after the Uline donation, money started flowing from the Restoration PAC to a media network that did some data procurement and analysis for VoteRep, and with payments totaling more than $955,000 as of the end of 2021. This is what the FEC record shows. The network, which includes Pipeline Media, is operated by a guy named Bradley Cameron and a Texas business strategist. State corporation records show. Now, Brian Timpone is listed as a manager at the Pipeline Media. He has made headlines going back 10 years after his firm, which was then called Journatic, came under fire for outsourcing what they call hyper-local news offshore using phony bylines. In recent months, Boat Rep has released press releases about its activities that have been turned into stories on sites that were owned by Metric Media, which Cameron leads. According to his online profile, the sites mimic legitimate news sources, but they print press releases, they shun bylines, they do little to no original reporting, and they rely on automated data. A new website to publish which Arlington residents voted did not vote in the gubernatorial election, which read an October 28th headline in the Central Nova News of Virginia, which is a site that's run by the Metric Media site. Uline did not respond to calls or emails from ProPublica seeking any further comment, but Cameron and Timpone also did not reply to messages seeking an interview. Political figures with ties to Trump have been touting the efforts of Vote Rep. Among them, former Virginia Attorney General Ken Succanelli, an immigration hardliner appointed by Trump to serve as an acting head of the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Succanelli now heads the Election Transparency Initiative, which is a Virginia organization that's opposed to expanding early voting, and they're opposed to easing what they call registration requirements. The initiative, which is a project of the conservative group Susan B. Anthony List, says that it partners with the Heritage Foundation's political arm. Succanelli spoke in September to about a party of 100 people at a gathering at a suburban Milwaukee hotel about how they could use the Vote Rep tools and become involved in securing the election process. Now, similarly, J. Hogan Gidley, who's a former national press secretary for the 2020 Trump campaign, promoted the work of Vote Rep on Philadelphia conservative talk radio host on the talk radio before Christmas, and we're doing some work with them too. We know the folks over there really well, said Gidley, who is now with the American First Policy Institute. Yeah, technically the Republicans don't know anything about America First, which is a nonprofit packed with Trump sycophantic alums. Now, Truax, meanwhile, brought in Samoa for his podcast last year, and they talked about the Arizona ballot audit and briefly referenced her work with the Voter Reference Foundation. Now, it always feels like to me that the states in general have gotten a little sloppy in different areas, and just so you know, nobody's really paying a lot of attention to it. And he added, now as I think as a conservative, as he's a conservatard, they're in a place where we really got to pay a lot more attention, and there's a lot of energy on this going on. Yeah, so almost damn near a year and a half later, they're still looking for non-existent voter fraud. So they're gonna fail on this one too. So you can keep looking for this non-existent voter fraud all you want, but it does not change the outcome that Biden still won. So you guys got to get the fuck over it. So if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. And you can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you could donate to my Patreon, which is on which you can find on the About section of my YouTube channel. So you can donate there to help further support the work.